All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to make an updated special video. It's more of a diary than a guide. That way, anyone who is looking into trying out Dark Knight or, you know, maybe trying to see what it's all about, I wanted to show you like everything, like gear, artifacts, lightstones, crystals, add-ons, and skills, and talk about it a little bit, and more explain why I use certain things versus, you know, why I wouldn't. So for the most part, we're going to talk about all of that. But before that, I want to show you guys something that Perlibus sent me, and let me show you that real quick. So they actually sent all the partners a gift, and it looks like this, but we're going to show you. So I thought this was kind of special because it's a whole Dark Knight like metal painting, and I thought that was really cool. So yeah, it has my name on it, the whole Dark Knight picture, and I thought that would fit with the theme of this video. So yeah, it's very awesome. Perlibus, you're probably going to watch this video, whoever was in charge of sending that out. It's really nice of you. Thank you guys so much. You're probably going to see other partners with different pictures, and yeah, I just thought that was really fancy, and that is really nice. But with that said, back to the video, and wanted to go over all the things I use, and especially now that we have Calamity 8 to 10 Sangoon boss, at least for now, I want to show you a lot of things I changed. So with that said, the new Calamity 8 to 10 is 330 all the way up to 350 AP, 330 being Calamity 8, 350 is 9 and 10. So we'll do that in another video. But anyway, so it's a little bit easier to talk about gear nowadays than it was before, simply because Karazad and Sovereign are, you know, basically mainstream, and no matter what class you play, chances are your end game goal is that. So the things that are a little bit different that I want to talk about are the different artifacts and lightstones I use. So as a general rule, all-out attack is generally the best for most things, and the way you get it would be 2 strikes and 2 rages. I will say, if you are not at the end game, although this one is good, you do lose a bit of DR and evasion. Evasion is less relevant, but DR is kind of for a lot of attack and crit damage. So you kind of have to, you know, be a little bit tankier, or you like the difference between Tri and Tet is a little bit noticeable depending on where you grind. But as long as you're, for the most part, over 401 DP, then hitting that bracket is always nice. All right, so other artifact combinations I use if you don't want the downside of the defensive loss, you could always do species damage. So what I have is Sylvian and human damage, or demi-human. Also have human, but that's a little bit more PvP side. So the way you do it is 3 of the crystals for the type of species you want, and 1 iridescent lightstone. So same with the Sylvian and demi-human. So I guess this is not so much a Dark Knight specific thing, but if you are at the high end, there are more demi-human type enemies that you are going to be grinding at that give more silver than Sylvian. I think they're both really good depending on what you're doing. But I think for the most part, demi-human is more used in general. Other things, this is one thing I'm currently testing right now, is the full-on DR one, and my goal is to eventually swap out into the defensive artifacts for more PvP stuff, but it's been a slow grind. I've been getting the Dekia fragments, which I have 44 of, and you need 100. Grinding Ash Forest is not fun, just straight up. Maybe they'll make it better one day. But anyway, yeah, that's one thing I've been testing. I also tried out a few other ones that are more into defensive, like the evasion one. I think it's one that's it gives a mix of defensive, but for the most part, it's not there. Full EXP for seasonals and everything, life skills, and then this is the human accuracy one, so more damage to humans. More on the PvP side, but there is a use for it in various grind spots for, I guess, human type enemies. Not used often. That's why I don't have the Kabua's artifacts on them, but when we switch it out, we'll try something else. So crystals. I have an entire dedicated video on all the crystals I use. So if you want to watch that, I'll leave it in the description. But for the most part, if I'm not grinding in a spot that requires some sort of CC resistances, this is what I have. And you could swap this one out, another Stalwart Fortitude, for another Precise Destruction. It's one more AP at the cost of a little bit of resistance and all DR. So this kind of more or less negates the effect of all-out attack. But that's just really high-end min-maxing. If you want straight damage, then you would put another Precise Destruction. But everything else is pretty mandatory. So yeah, that's about it. And then the other ones we talked about in the other videos, if you want to watch that, still updated. And another thing that I think would be good to talk about now, because people are swapping things up, is the different Reforge crystals that I have in my Sovereign weapons. So they are actually different because I got mine when they first came out and I was just kind of lazy to swap them. But this is how I would, for the most part, have them right now anyway. So I built a little bit of defense, and what I mean by that is the extra HP on both my weapons, and then one of them has an all damage reduction +5. Now, as we all know, Dark Knight is kind of a glass cannon, right? And, you know, the +400 HP from both of these, believe it or not, I have survived things that I thought I normally wouldn't have, especially if I'm doing group Black Shrine bosses, and I've definitely survived with under 400, so if I didn't have them, I would have actually just died. So, believe it or not, for me, the extra 400, even while full buffed, it really does mean a lot. And this one, it has down attack and all damage reduction. That's different. And the reason why is down attack for Dark Knight in particular is if you have, where is it? Down attack, would you look at that for Awakening Dark Knight? Basically all your skills that are relevant are down attacks. So that's why it's important. And aside from that, Black Spirit Rage Recovery is actually nice to have. And on here, we have back attack damage. Straight up, it is what it is, and crit damage. So yeah, I have a little mix of everything. People ask me, is it better to do crit damage or, like, you know, back down attack? It's for the most part the same. But one is like you can play less perfectly and be fine. So for example, if you don't get back attacks, obviously this is worthless, and if you're not doing it down, so it might be better overall for crits, but if you play more precisely, then the special ones with the 2% is better than 1. But overall for me, because I plan on doing, you know, group high-end stuff like Black Shrines, sometimes I do Olins, and, well, I guess Olins is, do you make a mistake or not? And then, of course, the new Calamity 7 pluses and 8, 9, 10. I want to try those out. So I play a little bit more defensively at the cost of a little bit of damage, but I think that's good. So yeah, that's what I have. If you don't care about any of that, what you could do is remove the HP. You don't necessarily need the all damage reduction. You could have like a down attack, back attack, and crit at the same time on all of that, and I think you'll be good. If you want more damage, just do that. Take off the defensives. All right, so next, I wanted to show you my add-ons and skill enhancements. So the reason why I use these are, one, the Shadow Strike is mostly to pull enemies when I'm grinding. So let's say an enemy is like this tree right here, right? So what I want to do is like hit the Shift X and the Shadow Strike to pull the enemy towards me instead of running up to it. So that's more of a PvE, like, aggro skill, more or less. Unveiled Fate is my number 1. I do this. and then mix it or flow it with the level 62. What is it? The thing you get from the Magnus Blooming Black Rose ability. And so that flows well together. So for example, like, let's say if you were to try to use this yourself, like, I don't know, do that, and then, you know, some other skill, it goes a little bit slower with the Blooming Black Rose. So, but if you do it with this, it kind of feels instant. So you can play around with different combinations. That works for me. But Obsidian Blaze just kind of feels clunky, and Unveiled Fate just feels smoother. So it's more of like one of those things where when everything else is on cooldown, you use it. It's not really a main damage. Balance Strike versus Slanted Slash. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really use it. I probably should hotbar it, but it's one of those things that's a 35-second cooldown, and Dark Knight abilities are very tight in terms of like cooldown timers. So you can get all these off and then have like one skill left, and you could use anything, but the Balance Strike probably isn't it. So yeah, this is not used a lot, but if I were to choose one of the two, Balance Strike feels more natural than the others. So yeah, with that said, here are the add-ons that I use. This is more for PvE. My PvP ones, what you would switch is like the extra AP against monsters, for extra damage against humans, or certain, you know, maybe more back attack, down attack, like CC kind of effects. So the way I picked out my add-ons are things like this. So for example, you see Cluster of Despair as a 10-second cooldown, and then you have things on 7, so it kind of lines up. But also, like skills like Dark Nebula, it's a good pull, it's a good skill, but also like all the skills are on a 7-second at minimum. So that means in theory, if you are using the skill on cooldown, which you should be when you're grinding, everything should be at a close to 100% uptime if you can. So yeah, that's one of those things that I do. Flowing with all of this stuff is always good. Shattering, 9-second skill cooldown, 12-second effects. That gives you a little bit of downtime to use all your other skills and re-up your other abilities with 100%. And yeah, this one is also a good one because this is a very short cooldown ability with over the time on your skill effects. So the way you build, no matter what class you play, as a general tip, is pick the skills that do a lot of damage and combine it with the skills where you can have like 100% or close to 100% uptime on the add-on effects. So things to look out for: attack cast speed, very high priority. Extra AP against monsters, that's, you know, just more damage. Crit is always good. Debuffing enemies is always good. And then like your bottom 2 abilities, I guess it doesn't have to be bottom 2, but just more like multiplier damage, like backs, down attacks, crits and everything. But what you really want to have going the most is extra AP against monsters and attack cast speed. That allows you to do things faster, and so that's highest priority. And if you can flow in a debuff to your enemies, that's always good. But the one thing I guess I would say to beginners starting out is probably to try to make sure your attack and cast speed is up as close to 100% as you can, if not 100, and start working on incorporating like more things at once. But highest priority being attack cast speed, and then just keeps adding all the buffs slowly until you can do it all at once, and then you figured out how to play Dark Knight. All right, so with that said, I wanted to talk about some of the skills that I use. And if you're new to Dark Knight, and this is just going to be like a general collective of important things to know. So what will help you mostly for grinding might be a little bit different from, you know, PvP, but here are some important notable ones, assuming you've never played Dark Knight before. Let's start with the main skill. So even if you play Succession, these are still important as well. Unveiled Dagger. Some people don't like using this, but if you hit your F button, you just like, it's the stabby skill. Like, let me just show you. If you hit F, that's the stabby skill, right? It adds a 10% attack speed ability on there. So it's like, you can use it as an opener ability before you like Wheel of Fortune or anything, right? So this isn't so much for the damage. It's more to add the 10% attack speed. Airstrike is the thing you see people using a lot when, let's say, you're trying to go from pack A to B. So let's say you want to go from horse here, you can do that, and then you move. So that's your mobility, more or less. So that's a basic one. You could flow it with a Vidir Strike as well. These two are less relevant. Slanted Balance. You use this more in Succession than you do in Awakening, but it is something to learn to get into your rotation as well. So I also see people using Slanted more in PvP than PvE. Like, you want to use it in both, but it's more important in PvP. So what it does is basically you down attack and air attacks. If, like, let's say an enemy is, you know, in front of you and then not guarded, what you would do is that's your Slanted Balance, and you would basically hit him with some sort of CC and you're good. Pervasive Darkness. It's better on Succession. Like, you just straight up don't use it on Awakening. But yeah, it's like you would flow it with your Enforcement, and it just does a lot of damage in Succession. Same with Ravaged Rake. It's your main spammable, more or less, in Succession. You don't use it in Awakening. Enforcement is a very strong ability. Have you ever gotten hit by one unprotected by a geared Dark Knight? Yeah, that hurts. So what it does is, like, it looks like this. It looks like the front cross ability. Yeah, you really just don't want to get hit by it. It does a lot of damage. So, and then if you flow it with the ultimate, and then you can just flow. The best way to use it is, let's say you airstrike or Slanted Balance, and then they are either floated or they're down attacked, or like they're on the ground. Then you hit them with an Enforcement, and that will chunk their health. That's like a basic Dark Knight combo 101. Comma Slash, it looks like this. You charge it, and then if someone's in front of you, not protected, that will CC them. It's very nice. You don't use it in Awakening much, but it's nice. Wheel of Fortune. This is probably going to be one of the abilities that helps you grind faster as a new player. You use it in both, I guess, less Awakening, but you still do use it. But this is probably your main one you want to use on cooldown in Succession as well. Obsidian Ashes. You know how we talked about Shadow Strike being the ability to pull enemies with, like, that ability? So Obsidian Ashes is essentially the same thing, but it's on your Shift E, and then it pulls. So you could have like 2 pulls from pack to pack and have things group a lot easier. So it helps you grind better and more efficiently. Corrupt Ground. Shift Q looks like this. It's kind of useless. It restores resources, but, you know, you aren't trying to use that, and you don't just run up to an enemy and use it. You do a lot of other things first. It's one of those, like, all your other skills are on cooldown, so you press that one. But even then, if you're doing things correctly, you probably don't. Lunacy of Vidir. This is actually a really strong ability. If you have it on quick slot, then there's no, like, actual button for it, so it has to be quick slotted. So yeah, make sure to slot this there. Admittedly, I don't use it in Awakening. It's like one of those, if everything is down, then I use it, but that rarely happens. Succession, on the other hand, you use this on cooldown. It does big damage. Blooming Black Rose, whether you play Succession or Awakening, you do the Magnus quest and get it. You don't just use this ability, it's a flow into something else, and then it does really good. Your movement abilities is Dusk and Chain Dusk and Into Smoky Haze. So what does that look like? So if you hit like Shift F or something, or like, what is that? This is what it looks like. You're basically iframing a bunch of things, and it kind of goes well with a lot of other things. Very cool, right? Yeah, a lot of these are, you just kind of, it's just there. Nocturne. This is one of the unique Dark Knight abilities that you kind of have to learn how to do over time. So I have it hotbarred. That's the only way you can activate it. The way it works is if you hit your Nocturne, right, then you would hit a directional key up or down. And what it does is go behind or forward to the enemy. And that's like obviously back attack or something, and or forward with a guard. And so basically you hit it, and then once you're invisible, you hit a directional, like up or down. And then it's kind of one of those things you really have a split second in PvP to think about what you're doing. Is the enemy in front of you? Then you try to go behind them, right? And so if they're, if they are guarded as well, you might want to go backwards and then protect yourself as well. So it's a little bit more complex in Succession than it is Awakening, but the idea is still the same. Go invisible, pick a direction, and then you do something. Phantasmal Snare. To be honest, it's hard for me to combo this one in Awakening. I don't really know why, but in Succession, it's so easy. Awakening just feels a little bit clunkier because you have to press like 3 buttons instead of 2. But yeah, it's definitely worth trying to learn. And I wish this ability, Vidir's Dogma, actually did something. It's such a cool idea. Basically, like you absorb your MP and essentially you do more like slash normal attack damage. However, reality is it's not that good. It's a cool idea. Maybe one day when they decide to buff Dark Knight for the first time in like years, that they'll actually, I think the only way to fix this skill is to rework it entirely and actually, maybe you, let's say you're draining resources consistently with it on, but it's like a permanent buff of like, here, you get X kind of damage for something relevant instead of like your normal attack. So it's a cool idea. It's just kind of useless. Impervious Command is something that you just mark an enemy, and in theory, the marked enemy takes more damage. But once again, this really just needs to be reworked. Kind of sucks, but same with these two. It is what it is. And then after everything else, like, just get whatever. All right, so Awakening. Your main abilities are going to be Shattering into the Flow, and then Seed of Catastrophe into the Flow. So what you're going to want to learn to do is hit these as a combo. So like this one is Shift LMB and then Shift E. So this one would be like this, and then the flow, and then you could start, that was like all 4 of them, 2 and 2 into the flow. Spirit Blaze. This one is a little tricky for new players because I know it says down R and B, right mouse, but the way you could do this one, if you just want to hit the flow, is you hotbar the flow instead of doing the combo. So let me show you what it looks like. If you are not hotbarring it, watch me do Spirit Blaze into the flow. That's C1, 2. That was kind of slow, right? So let's say you get the first one off, the first like swing. You just get grabbed. What you would do is you hotbar the flow, and then you just go up, and then you just swing it and skip the first one. Admittedly, I don't really use it as much, but it's one of those things, like, in PvE, you could use it as a finisher. Let's say your enemies have, like, 1% health, and you don't want to pop your Spirit Legacy again, right? Like, you want to just go to the next pack. You would just do this one, finish off the enemies, and then you're good to go. Spirit Hunt. This is the ability you would use to swap between Awakening, or, like, swap between Awakening and main. So, like, let's say you are on normal, right? Like this is your main hand. If you were to use Spirit Hunt, it looks like this, up R&B, and then now you're in Awakening form. So instead of hitting like your Awakening C button, you can Spirit Hunt on a 3-second cooldown. Plus you have the skill add-on, so you you buff yourself essentially, and you're in awakening form. So like you would Spirit Hunt into any damaging ability. Spirit Legacy, big damage Spirit Bomb. It looks like this. Well, not that. That's the 100, but it looks like that. So yeah. So one thing I see new Dark Knight players do is they spam this thing. You aren't supposed to do that. Yes, I know you can. You shouldn't. Because if you do it on cooldown, like during the timer of cooldown, it just doesn't do as much damage. So, like, it is one of those things you really want to have on your bar as a timer tracker. And so, like, for example, I have mine here. I actually try to wait out the 7-second cooldown, because if I use it too early, it just doesn't do as much damage. It's not the same thing. So it goes, I believe that goes with Succession as well. Trap of Vidir, it's more of a get out of situations moment, but you could also use it to like basically go backwards, and then like, let's say, hold on, let me see. What's the cooldown? Okay, so it's like that, and then you just flow and like boost yourself backwards into a huge chain of abilities. But for the most part, you could use it as a debuffer, and I've also tried using this on a skill add-on. It's okay. Cluster of Despair, you really want to learn to flow this into a lot of abilities. Same with Grip of Grudge, Twilight Dash, and Dark Nebula. And with the core Seed of Catastrophe, this is what I use as the core, mostly because it gives, you know, super armor when you're using it. I see a lot of other players either using it on Spirit Legacy or Spirit Hunt. It doesn't matter. I think just for the most part, whether you're a new player or not, this is probably the safest one, just to add another super armor. So with that said, that's all the Dark Knight abilities that I wanted to talk about. And yeah, I guess that's for the most part my Dark Knight diary and intro to the game or the class. I have a lot more detailed videos that I'll leave in the description, so like all the crystals and everything. But for the most part, you know, those are the basics. And if you want to watch my grind videos to see how it works in action, there's a grind video link playlist where you could pick a spot and then just watch me do it. So with that said, I think that's about it. For everything else, you just want to, I still use elixirs, but for everything else, you probably just want to use a harmony, and like you'll be fine. And then every other buff you can. So I think I covered everything. I guess another question people ask is it better to get your main hand or the awakening first? Usually the awaken, or the main hand, I should say, because it does give the accuracy, whereas this one does not give the accuracy. But yeah, aside from that, you're gonna get them all up eventually. But once you're, okay, so this is not buffed. I don't think we have any buffs going on. This is what it looks like. You do get the extra passive accuracy because you're a Dark Knight, and Dark Knights get the spirit accuracy buff, so that's where that comes from. That's it. That's what mine looks like unbuffed. So yeah, with that said, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.